The room was silent, but the silence was screaming. Samuel stood frozen as the video played in Gloria's hand, the screen lighting up his disgrace for the second time that night. There he was, clear as day, being punched, dragged, humiliated like a fool in front of strangers. His mouth moved, but no words came out. The lie he had rehearsed on the drive home died in his throat. Gloria didn't shout. She didn't cry. She just looked at him the way a judge looks at a man who already knows the verdict. Moments earlier, he had walked in acting wounded, spinning stories about street boys and bad luck, talking without being asked, piling lie upon lie like a man trying to block a flood with sand. But the flood had already entered the house. She knew. She had always known. And now the mask had fallen, and the man who thought he was clever stood exposed, smaller than his shadow. He begged, he shook, he promised heaven and earth. But some doors close without noise, and some hearts grow strong where they once were soft. That night, pride bowed, truth stood tall, and a marriage reached a point of no return. Now, sit back and relax as we delve into this interesting and remarkable story. In the lively city of Eden, where the streets hummed from dawn like a market that never slept and dreams rose like heat from sun-soaked pavement, Samuel and Gloria once began as the kind of couple people pointed at with quiet admiration. In those early days, before routine grew dust on affection, they were two hearts beating in hopeful rhythm, building a life brick by careful brick. Samuel was not yet the polished corporate man people later knew. He was simply a determined young graduate with neatly pressed shirts and ambition tucked behind his shy smile. Gloria was soft-spoken but sharp-minded, the sort of woman who could see beauty in an empty corner and possibility in broken things. They met on a Sunday afternoon after service, introduced by a mutual friend under a mango tree behind the church hall, where the choir's laughter still floated in the air. Their conversations began modestly, like a trickle of water, but soon flowed with ease. Samuel loved how she listened without interrupting, how her eyes held steady warmth, how she spoke about faith as if it were breath itself. Gloria admired his drive, the way he mapped out his future with quiet confidence, never loud, never boastful. When he proposed, it was not with fireworks, but with sincerity, kneeling on a simple mat in her parents' sitting room, voice trembling like a leaf in Harmattan wind. She said yes with tears that tasted of both fear and joy, because marriage, she knew, was not a bed of roses without thorns. Their early marriage was humble, their first apartment small enough that their laughter bounced off every wall. They counted coins, planned meals, shared dreams at night like children whispering secrets. When money was tight, they tightened their belts and prayed together, hands clasped over a flickering candle during power cuts. Gloria would say, "The Lord has brought us this far," and Samuel would nod, believing it with the simple faith of a man still close to his beginnings. They held on to the words of Ecclesiastes 4 verse 9. "Two are better than one, because they have a good return for their labor," and they truly labored side by side. If life threw stones, they built steps with them. If storms gathered, they shut the windows and stayed close. In those days, Samuel called Gloria his good thing, often quoting Proverbs 18 verse 22. "He who finds a wife finds what is good and receives favor from the Lord," with a grin that made her blush. Their love was not loud, but it was steady, like a drumbeat under a song. No one could have told them then that time sometimes tests what joy once built, or that even a well-fed heart can wander if not guarded. Back then, they were simply two young people in Eden, walking hand in hand, unaware that the same road that felt smooth could later hide stones sharp enough to wound. As the years rolled forward like a wheel that never asks permission to turn, Samuel's career began to rise, slow at first, then with the speed of a river after heavy rain. He secured a position in the human resources department of a major oil company, and the change in their income felt like stepping from shade into bright sun. Bills that once loomed like mountains shrank into small hills. Their tiny apartment gave way to a spacious home Gloria decorated with the careful touch of an artist who paints with memory as much as color. She chose curtains that caught morning light like soft gold, arranged furniture with balance and grace, and filled the house with a warmth guests often praised. To outsiders, their home in Eden looked like the picture of fulfillment, the kind of place where peace should sit comfortably like a familiar chair. Samuel bought suits that fit like confidence, wore cologne that announced his presence before his footsteps did, and began to move in circles where conversations revolved around promotions, investments, and influence. At first, success sat lightly on him, but slowly, almost unnoticed, it began to whisper new desires into his ears. The simple contentment of their early days faded like an old photograph. He no longer rushed home with stories of the office. Instead, he lingered after work, claiming meetings and networking. Gloria noticed the shift the way a farmer notices a change in the wind before rain. She saw how his laughter at dinner grew thin, how his phone stayed face down on the table, how his eyes sometimes looked beyond her as if chasing a thought she could not see. Yet she chose patience, reminding herself of 1 Corinthians 13 verse 7. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. She filled her time with design projects, turning houses across Eden into masterpieces, earning praise and referrals. Still, when night settled and the house fell quiet, she knelt beside their bed, praying not with loud words, but with the steady persistence of a dripping tap. She asked for wisdom, for peace, for her husband's heart to remain anchored. Samuel, meanwhile, felt an itch he could not name, a restlessness that success failed to soothe. He began to compare, to scroll through images of other lives, to believe that something exciting waited just beyond his reach. Like a man chasing the horizon, he forgot that the sun sets no matter how far one walks. The house remained beautiful, the meals still warm, but an invisible crack had formed, thin as a hairline, yet deep enough to widen if ignored. What neither of them fully understood then was that spiritual distance can grow quietly, like weeds under tall grass, unseen until the field looks different. In the middle of this slow shift, Gloria held tighter to her faith, sensing that storms do not announce themselves with drums, but with subtle changes in the air. She remembered her mother's words that a home is first built in prayer before bricks ever rise. So while Samuel's schedule grew crowded, Gloria's prayer life grew deeper. She rose before dawn, when Eden still yawned in half-sleep, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders and sitting by the window where early light touched the floor. There she spoke to God about her marriage, her fears, her gratitude, laying them out like clothes under sun. She did not accuse Samuel before heaven. She simply asked for guidance, for protection over their union, for the truth to stand firm no matter how long shadows stretched. She often whispered Psalm 127 verse 1, "Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain," believing that human effort without divine covering is like drawing water with a basket. In those quiet mornings, peace would settle on her heart like dew on leaves, gentle but sure. She chose kindness in her words, even when suspicion pricked her mind like thorns. She prepared Samuel's favorite meals, ironed his shirts with care, greeted him with calm eyes. Not because she was blind, but because she refused to fight a battle without first seeking direction. She knew that anger can be a wild horse, throwing its rider if not bridled. Samuel, on the other hand, drifted further into himself, mistaking Gloria's calm for ignorance. He forgot that still waters often run deep. At work, he enjoyed the attention of younger colleagues who laughed easily, admired his experience, and fed his growing ego. Compliments fell on him like rain on dry soil, soaking in quickly. He began to spend more time on his phone, smiling at messages he shielded from view. The distance between husband and wife did not explode. It stretched quietly, like fabric pulled little by little. Gloria felt it, but instead of shouting across the gap, she continued to pray, trusting Isaiah 60 verse 22. "When the time is right, I, the Lord, will make it happen." She believed truth has a way of surfacing, like oil rising above water, impossible to bury forever. Her strength was not loud. It was rooted, like a tree whose growth happens mostly underground. If Samuel had looked closely, he would have seen that her silence was not surrender but preparation, the calm of someone who knew that God sees what walls hide. Meanwhile, Samuel's heart wandered further from the simplicity that once grounded him, though he would not have admitted it even to himself. He told himself he deserved excitement after years of hard work, that a little harmless attention would not shake the foundation of his home. Like a man playing with fire and calling it warmth, he underestimated the danger. He still came home, still shared the bed, still played the role of loving husband, yet something inside him leaned elsewhere, like a plant bending toward another light source. Gloria observed without confrontation, her spirit alert though her face remained composed. She noticed unexplained withdrawals, sudden grooming changes, the faint scent of unfamiliar perfume clinging to his clothes some evenings. Each sign pricked her heart, but she carried them to prayer rather than quarrel. She remembered Proverbs 3 verse 5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, knowing that human reasoning alone often leads down crooked paths. Friends who visited still admired their home, unaware of the silent tension humming beneath the surface like electricity in hidden wires. Samuel laughed easily in public, his charm polished, but inside he wrestled with dissatisfaction he could not name. He forgot the days when sharing Gary and groundnut with Gloria felt like a feast, when holding her hand during evening walks was enough joy. Now he chased feelings that faded as quickly as they came, like trying to hold smoke in his fist. Gloria, though wounded in ways she could not fully express, anchored herself in faith, believing that truth and justice walk at their own pace, but never lose the way. She refused to let bitterness root in her heart, knowing it could choke her peace. Instead, she prayed for clarity, for strength, for God's will to stand firm in her life, even if the road ahead twisted. In Eden, life outside their walls remained loud and bright, but inside their marriage, a quiet battle had begun, not with shouting or thrown objects, but with choices, prayers, and secrets slowly shaping a future neither of them had yet seen. Vivian did not arrive in Samuel's life like thunder. She slipped in like a soft song you hum before realizing you know all the words. She worked in a partner firm that handled recruitment logistics for the oil company, and their first real conversation happened over a delayed meeting that stretched into casual talk. She had a way of leaning in when he spoke, eyes wide with interest, laughing at stories Gloria had long heard before. She called him Sir at first, then Sam, then my favorite person at work, each step small, like drops of water wearing down stone. Samuel, flattered and restless, began to linger around her desk under the excuse of follow-ups. Vivian talked about big dreams, luxury, soft life, and how she hated small beginnings. Her words stroked his ego like oil on dry skin. She often complained about men her age being broke or unserious, and Samuel, hearing this, straightened like a rooster at dawn. He started paying for her lunches, then her transport, then surprise gifts. What began as kindness slowly tied knots around his judgment. He ignored the quiet warning of James 1 verse 14. Each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed, believing he was in control. Vivian, on her part, knew how to cast her net. She praised his suits, his voice, his mature mindset, planting seeds that sprouted into secret smiles on his face, even at home. The idea of the birthday party did not fall from the sky. It grew from Vivian's endless talk about how she had never had a proper celebration. She spoke of themed decor, live music, photographers, and a guest list that sounded like a wedding. Samuel laughed at first, but she kept circling back to it, showing him event pages, celebrity parties, and videos of glamorous venues in Eden. One afternoon, she sighed dramatically and said, "If I had someone who truly cared, this year would be different." The hook sank deeper. Samuel, already neck-deep in emotional foolishness, told her not to worry. From that moment, he took the matter upon himself as though proving something to the world. He contacted event planners, paid deposits, upgraded menus, and arranged a DJ known for high-profile shows. Each payment made him feel powerful, like a king scattering gold, but he forgot that even kings fall when wisdom leaves the throne. Ecclesiastes 10 verse 1 warns, "Dead flies make the perfumer's ointment give off a stench. So a little folly outweighs wisdom and honor." Yet Samuel marched on, blind to the smell of coming disgrace. Vivian praised him loudly, hugging him in quiet corners, promising he was different, words as sweet as honey and just as sticky. As preparations intensified, Samuel's double life grew heavier, though he carried it like a man pretending his load weighed nothing. He took calls from vendors in his car before going inside his house, cleared chat histories, and labeled some expenses as office welfare, in his mind just to sleep at night. Gloria noticed the late-night whispers, the glow of his phone on his face, the way he smiled at nothing. Still, she said little. Instead, she prayed deeper, her spirit uneasy like a bird sensing a storm. She remembered Luke 8, verse 17. "For nothing is hidden that will not be disclosed, trusting that truth walks on slow legs, but always arrives." Meanwhile, Vivian's demands grew wings. She wanted a new dress, professional makeup, and a hotel suite for pre-party photos. Samuel paid again and again, telling himself love required sacrifice, not seeing that he was pouring water into a basket. The more he gave, the more she expected, and the less she respected him. Familiarity had begun to remove the sweetness from her tone. She now corrected him, ignored calls when busy, and made him wait. Yet he clung tighter, like a gambler chasing a lost bet. A week before the party, Vivian's excitement shifted toward her guest list, especially one particular man she spoke about often, a flashy businessman known around Eden. She laughed loudly at his jokes over the phone, even in Samuel's presence, and when he frowned, she waved it off as networking. Jealousy stirred in him like pepper in the nose, but pride kept him silent. He had spent too much to back out now. Invitations went out, outfits were finalized, photographers confirmed. Samuel told himself the night would seal his place in her life, that all the spending would prove his worth. He ignored the quiet ache in his chest, the sense that he was chasing the wind. Proverbs 27 verse 20 says, "Death and destruction are never satisfied, and neither are human eyes." Yet he believed one grand gesture could buy loyalty. What he did not know was that while he was building castles in the air, Gloria was building patience on her knees, and heaven was not asleep. The stage was set, the lights were ready, and the drum of consequence had begun to beat softly in the distance. The day of the party rose bright over Eden, sunlight pouring across rooftops, as if nothing unusual waited in the hours ahead. Samuel woke earlier than usual, heart already restless, though he told himself it was excitement. He shaved carefully, changed shirts twice, and checked his phone for Vivian's messages before even greeting the morning properly. She had sent photos of her makeup trial and her dress hanging like a trophy on a wardrobe door, reminding him of pickup times and last-minute payments. He transferred money before brushing his teeth, moving funds around like a man shifting furniture to hide cracks in the floor. Gloria watched him from the kitchen doorway while stirring tea, noticing how he hummed under his breath, a tune she did not recognize. He avoided her eyes, speaking quickly about a late office function. She nodded, saying little, though her spirit felt heavy, like air before rainfall. After he left, she sat quietly and whispered Psalm 121, verse 7. "The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life," not yet knowing the shape that harm would take, only sensing that the road ahead held sharp stones. Samuel reached the hotel venue before sunset, determined to inspect everything like a project manager guarding his reputation. The hall dazzled with hanging lights and mirrored centerpieces, staff moving about with trays and cables. He spoke to decorators, confirmed the cake design, and tipped the DJ in advance, wanting no loose ends. Each detail he handled fed his illusion of importance, like building a throne out of borrowed wood. Vivian arrived later with friends, stepping out of a car as if stepping onto a stage. Her dress caught the light, her laughter louder than the music test run. She hugged him briefly, already distracted, pointing out photo angles and asking if the videographer had arrived. Samuel felt a flicker of discomfort, but he brushed it aside, telling himself she was just excited. Guests began to stream in, greetings growing louder, drinks flowing freely. Samuel stood close at first, smiling stiffly, but Vivian drifted from group to group, leaving him trailing like a shadow that could not keep up. Proverbs 29 verse 23 says, "Pride brings a person low, but the lowly in spirit gain honor." Yet he carried himself as though honor came from spending, not character. As the night thickened, music took over the room, conversations turning into shouts over beats that rattled glasses. Samuel noticed a particular man Vivian kept circling back to, a sharply dressed guest with easy charm and a confident laugh. Each time Samuel approached, she waved him off with casual excuses, saying she was just introducing contacts. Jealousy crawled into Samuel's chest like ants under skin. He tried to swallow it, sipping drink after drink, but the taste turned sour. He watched as the man whispered into Vivian's ear, both of them laughing, their closeness louder than any music. The proverb about adding fuel to fire fit too well. Each glance fanned the flames. Samuel reminded himself he had paid for this entire spectacle, that he had rights, though nothing about the situation felt secure. James 3 verse 16 warns, "For where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice." And disorder was quietly setting the table. The moment that shattered everything came fast, like a plate slipping from careless fingers. Vivian grabbed the microphone during a toast, already flushed from drinks and attention. She thanked everyone, voice high with excitement, then turned toward the well-dressed man, praising him loudly for always supporting her dreams. Before Samuel could process the words, she leaned in and kissed the man in full view of flashing cameras and cheering guests. Something snapped inside Samuel, like a rope stretched too far. Anger surged, blinding reason, and he pushed forward, words tumbling out harsh and uncontrolled. He reached toward her, hand raised not in thought, but in impulse. Gasps cut through the music. The man reacted faster, fist connecting with Samuel's face, the impact ringing like a bell. Security rushed in, gripping Samuel's arms as though he were the troublemaker, dragging him toward the exit while whispers chased behind him. Proverbs 16 verse 32 says, "Better a patient person than a warrior, one with self-control than one who takes a city." But in that moment, Samuel had neither patience nor control. Outside, under cold night air, humiliation settled on him like dust that would not brush off, and the road home awaited, heavy with consequences. Cold night air hit Samuel's face the moment security pushed him through the glass doors, and it felt less like wind and more like judgment. The music thudded behind him, muffled now, yet every beat sounded like laughter chasing him into the dark. His cheek burned where the punch had landed, a deep ache spreading across his jaw, but the pain inside weighed more than the one on his skin. Two guards released his arms with the indifference of men discarding trash, and he nearly stumbled before regaining balance. He straightened his jacket out of habit, though dignity had already slipped through his fingers like sand. Guests near the entrance stared openly, whispers fluttering around him like restless birds. Someone smirked. Another pretended not to look. The ground did not open to swallow him, though he wished it would. Proverbs 11 verse 2 echoed truthfully, "When pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with humility comes wisdom," yet wisdom had come too late to stop the fall. His chest rose and fell rapidly, anger bubbling like water in a pot left too long on fire. He blamed Vivian, the man who punched him, the security, the alcohol, everything except himself. His ego, bruised and bleeding, screamed louder than his conscience. He replayed the moment she kissed that man, how the crowd cheered, how cameras flashed, how he lunged without thinking. Rage told him he had been disrespected, but shame whispered that he had volunteered for humiliation. He paced the parking lot, shoes scraping asphalt, muttering under his breath like a man arguing with ghosts. His phone buzzed in his pocket, but he ignored it, afraid it carried more embarrassment. The night sky stretched wide above Eden, silent and unmoved, while Samuel stood below it, a man discovering too late that the higher pride climbs, the harder it falls. The sting of public disgrace clung to him like smoke after fire, refusing to fade. He felt small, exposed, like a masquerade stripped of costume before a crowd. For a moment, he considered going back inside to shout, to demand respect, but sense finally tugged his sleeve. A dog that returns to a fight it already lost only earns more wounds. He exhaled sharply, tasting bitterness, and turned toward his car, each step heavy with the weight of a night that had slipped from celebration into shame. Inside the car, silence wrapped around him, thick and suffocating. He slammed the door harder than needed, the sound cracking through the parking lot like a gunshot. His reflection stared back from the rearview mirror, lips swollen, eyes clouded, pride shattered into pieces, too small to gather. He cursed under his breath, words spilling like water from a broken tap. The humiliation replayed in loops, each memory sharper than the last. Vivian's laughter, the crowd's cheers, the fist connecting with his face, security hands on his arms. He gripped the steering wheel and pressed his forehead against it, breathing hard, trying to steady the storm inside. Anger rose again, but now disappointment joined it, a heavy partner. How had he allowed himself to fall so low? He, a respected professional, dragged out like a street troublemaker. Proverbs 19 verse 3 rang with uncomfortable truth. A person's own folly leads to their ruin, yet their heart rages against the Lord. He was angry, yes, but not at the right place. His choices had paved this road stone by stone. Still, he searched for excuses, as though shifting blame might lighten the load. He started the engine, the hum vibrating through the car, and pulled onto the road, headlights cutting through Eden's night traffic. As buildings slid past, so did thoughts, racing faster than the car itself. He could not go home with this story. Gloria would ask questions, and he could not hand her the truth like a gift. The truth was a snake. It would bite him. He needed something cleaner, something believable, something that would hide the dirt under a carpet of sympathy. His mind began to weave possibilities, thin threads at first, then thicker ones. He imagined telling her it was an accident, but the bruise looked like a fight. He thought of a fall, but where would that happen at night? The lie had to fit like a shoe, not too tight, not too loose. Sweat gathered at his temple, despite the cool air from the vent. He was not just driving home. He was driving toward judgment, and he knew it. Traffic lights blinked red, yellow, green, each stop giving his mind more room to wander. He tapped the steering wheel, thinking like a man solving a puzzle where the wrong piece could ruin the picture. Teenagers. Yes, groups of restless boys often loitered near certain streets at night. If he said they tried to extort money and attacked him when he refused, it would sound reasonable. People feared such stories. They rarely questioned them. He built the lie carefully, adding details the way a cook seasons stew. They surrounded him, demanded cash. He stood his ground. One punched him before he escaped. He rehearsed it in his head, adjusting tone, planning pauses for effect. His voice would need to sound shaken, not defensive. His eyes would need to avoid hers, but not too much. Proverbs 12 verse 19 says, "Truthful lips endure forever, but a lying tongue lasts only a moment." But in that car, he chose the moment over forever. The city lights flickered past like witnesses he hoped would forget his face. His conscience knocked faintly, reminding him that lies grow legs and walk into daylight eventually. Yet fear pushed louder, drowning the whisper. He imagined Gloria's sympathy, her worry, her care, and guilt stabbed him briefly, but he pushed it aside like clutter. Survival first, feelings later. The road stretched ahead, dark and uncertain, but in his mind, the lie began to shine like a false lighthouse, promising safety where rocks waited beneath the surface. By the time he neared his street, the story felt polished, smooth enough to roll off his tongue without stumbling. He practiced his expression in the mirror again, softening his eyes, lowering his voice, rehearsing the sigh he would release before speaking. He even planned to mention how unsafe the city had become, using general fear as a shield. The house lights glowed in the distance, warm and steady, a picture of peace he no longer deserved. His chest tightened, not from injury, but from the weight of deception about to cross the threshold. He thought briefly of turning back, of driving aimlessly until morning, but running from truth is like running from your shadow. It follows. Hosea 8 verse 7 whispered warning. They sow the wind and reap the whirlwind, yet he pressed forward. He parked slowly, engine ticking as it cooled, and sat there for a moment, hands resting on the wheel, heart beating unevenly. The lie felt ready, dressed, and waiting. He inhaled deeply, convincing himself this was necessary, that one false story could protect everything. Little did he know the net had already been cast from another direction, and he was walking into it blind. He stepped out, closed the door quietly, and headed toward the house, carrying not just a bruised face, but a carefully crafted deception, unaware that the truth was already sitting inside, waiting without noise. Samuel stepped into the house, carrying his rehearsed story like an actor clutching a script, face arranged into practiced distress, movements slow as though pain weighed on every joint. The living room lights cast a soft glow, and Gloria sat calmly on the couch, legs crossed, posture relaxed, the picture of quiet composure. That calmness pricked him immediately, but he pressed on, clearing his throat dramatically before she could even ask a single question. He launched into the lie with urgency, words spilling fast and tangled, claiming a gang of rough teenagers had surrounded him near a junction, demanding money with threats sharp as knives. He gestured wildly, adding imaginary details, describing shadows, rough voices, a sudden blow. He painted himself as a helpless victim caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, shaking his head like a man still in shock. Gloria said nothing. She just watched him, a small smile playing at the corner of her lips, the kind of smile that did not match the story being told. That smile unsettled him like a loose nail in a shoe. Still, he kept talking, digging the hole deeper with every sentence, sweat gathering near his temple, though the room was cool. Proverbs 10 verse 9 drifted quietly through the moment. Whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but whoever takes crooked paths will be found out. He did not see that crooked path crumbling under his feet. When he finally paused, breath heavy, he added that the city had become dangerous, and he was lucky to be alive. Gloria nodded slowly, eyes steady, smile still there. The silence that followed pressed on his chest. He laughed nervously and said he would take a shower to wash the dust of the attack away, already turning toward the hallway, desperate to escape her gaze. But before he could take a step, her laughter exploded into the room, loud, sharp, unstoppable, like glass shattering across tile. Samuel froze mid-step, confusion rushing over him like cold water. He turned slowly, eyebrows knotted, asking if she was laughing at him. Gloria laughed harder, bending forward slightly, holding her stomach as though the comedy before her was too rich to contain. When she finally caught breath, she looked at him with a mix of disbelief and contempt. "Yes, I am laughing at you," she said, voice thick with mockery. "Look at you." A grown man standing there acting like a schoolboy caught with stolen sweets. Her words began to rain down, heavy and unfiltered. She called him foolish, spineless, a disgrace wearing a man's face. She said he had the boldness of a rat, but the pride of a lion, an empty drum making the loudest noise. She mocked his dramatic acting, saying even street performers could lie better than he did. Proverbs 12 verse 22 seemed to breathe in the room, The Lord detests lying lips, but he delights in people who are trustworthy. He tried to interrupt, face tightening, telling her she was being disrespectful, that she had no proof, that she was imagining things. His voice rose defensive, but hers rose higher, sharp as broken glass. She called him shameless, said he looked like a man who sold his dignity for pocket change. She asked if he thought she was blind, if marriage had made her a fool. Each insult landed like a slap he could not block. He straightened his shoulders, trying to gather what remained of authority, scolding her for accusing him wrongly, saying she should trust her husband instead of insulting him. But Gloria's eyes changed, hardening like stone under pressure. Without another word, she reached for her phone on the table, movements calm and deliberate, like a judge preparing to present evidence. She unlocked it, tapped the screen, and turned it toward him. The video began to play. The music, the crowd, Vivian, the kiss, the punch, the security dragging him out, every second unfolded mercilessly. The color drained from Samuel's face as though someone had pulled a plug. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came. The lie he had polished so carefully shattered into dust in an instant. Numbers 32:23 stood undeniable. Be sure your sin will find you out. He looked from the screen to Gloria, then back again, hoping his eyes deceived him. They did not. His shoulders sagged, pride draining out of him like air from a punctured tire. Panic replaced arrogance, and he moved toward her, hands half raised, voice breaking as he began to beg. He said he was sorry, that he had made a mistake, that it meant nothing, that he would end everything. Gloria rose to her feet, laughter gone, replaced by fury held tight like a blade. She insulted him again, harsher now, calling him cheap, pathetic, a man who traded gold for glitter. She said he embarrassed not only himself but the family name, fighting over a girl young enough to laugh at him. She mocked his swollen face, saying another man's fist had done what her words could not. Proverbs 6 verse 32 echoed truthfully, but a man who commits adultery has no sense. Whoever does so destroys himself. Samuel wept openly, asking her to delete the video, promising anything. But Gloria's words cut deeper than tears, telling him he had dug his own grave with lies and lust, and now he must lie in it. The room held a stillness so deep it felt like time itself had paused to watch what would happen next. Samuel stood before Gloria with his pride in ruins, voice trembling like a leaf caught in a restless wind. Tears clung to his lashes as he tried again, speaking with the desperation of a man drowning in waters he himself had stirred. He told her to forget everything, to wipe the slate clean, to let the night fade like a bad dream at sunrise. He promised change, swore he would cut ties, said he would do anything she asked, even if it cost him comfort, status, or reputation. His words poured out fast, tripping over one another, heavy with fear. But Gloria did not soften. She had traveled too far in silence, prayed too many nights with wet eyes, swallowed too much pain to be moved by panic. Ecclesiastes 3 verse 1 seemed written across her calm expression. There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. For pleading he had a season. For consequences she now had hers. She folded her arms and watched him unravel, not with cruelty, but with a firmness born from wounds that had healed into strength. He said he loved her, that the affair was a mistake, that temptation had clouded his mind. She replied quietly that love is not proved by words spoken under pressure, but by choices made when no one is watching. The truth sat between them like an unmovable rock. Samuel's sobs grew louder, his shoulders shaking, but sympathy did not grow in the soil of betrayal. She had prayed for clarity, and clarity had arrived like morning light, gentle, yet revealing everything. When his voice finally thinned into exhausted silence, Gloria spoke, her tone measured like someone reading a verdict already decided. If he wanted the video gone, he would sign divorce papers without drama. Half of everything they built together would legally be hers. He would move out of the house quietly, with no arguments. And if anyone ever asked why the marriage ended, He must provide an explanation that protected her dignity, because if he dared twist the story, the video would travel farther than his lies ever could. Her conditions landed like stones dropped into deep water, each one sending ripples through his heart. He stared at her, eyes wide, realizing the bridge behind him had burned to ash. Proverbs 6 verse 27 whispered the truth he now understood too late. Can a man scoop fire into his lap without his clothes being burned? He had carried fire, and now he felt the heat. For a moment he hesitated, hoping she might soften, but her gaze did not waver. He saw no hatred there, only resolve. He nodded slowly, as though each movement cost him breath. His voice came out cracked, agreeing to terms he once would have rejected with anger. But a man whose pride has been broken bends easier than dry wood under rain. The days that followed moved like a slow march toward an ending neither of them celebrated. Papers were signed in silence, ink sealing a chapter that once began with hope under a mango tree years ago. Samuel packed his belongings with heavy hands, each shirt folded feeling like a memory being placed in a box. The house that once rang with shared laughter now echoed with distance. Gloria did not watch him leave. She stayed in her room, praying softly, asking for peace to settle where pain had lived. Isaiah 43 verses 18 and 19 gave her comfort. Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. For her, the future looked uncertain but clean. For him, the future stretched long and gray, like a road under cloudy skies. As he stepped outside with his bags, he glanced back once, but the door remained closed, not in anger, but in finality. Some endings are loud, others close like a book finished at last. Years later, regret became Samuel's constant companion, sitting beside him in quiet rooms, walking with him through ordinary days. Success lost its shine, laughter felt forced, and nights grew longer than they should. He replayed choices like a man counting missed steps that led to a fall. He remembered Gloria's patience, her quiet prayers, her steady love, and realized he had traded treasure for illusion. Ecclesiastes 7 verse 8 proved true. The end of a matter is better than its beginning, and patience is better than pride. He had chosen pride, and its harvest was bitter. Meanwhile, Gloria rebuilt her life with grace, her faith her anchor, her peace returning like sunrise after a storm. Samuel carried his lesson not as wisdom gained easily, but as a scar earned the hard way, a reminder that what a man sows in secret, he eventually reaps in the open, and regret once planted grows deep roots. Dear listeners, some choices don't shout when they arrive. They whisper. They look small, harmless, easy to hide. But a single wrong step taken in secret can echo through a lifetime louder than any public mistake. Desire can feel sweet in the moment, but it often leaves a bitter taste that no apology can wash away. A person may think they are only playing with sparks, yet before long the whole house is on fire. Never trade what is steady for what is flashy. The things that glitter are not always gold. Sometimes they are just broken glass catching light. Loyalty, peace at home, a clear conscience, these are treasures money cannot buy back once lost. When trust breaks, it does not shatter like a plate that can be glued. It cracks like a mirror. Even when fixed, the lines remain. Before you step where your heart feels uneasy, pause. Listen to that quiet voice inside. That voice is wisdom knocking gently before consequences start pounding. One moment of pleasure can open the door to years of regret. And regret is a heavy companion. It sits beside you long after excitement has left the room. Guard your heart. Guard your home. Guard your name. Because when shame comes, it does not knock politely. It enters like a storm, and by the time the rain stops, what once stood strong may already be washed away.